Welcome to Module 4. The course is OLT 132, Studies in African Literature. This module introduces us to praise from Africa, different stories from Africa, especially praise. You must differentiate praise from novel. Praise from a novel, where you need to know what is play, what is drama, and what is a novel. By starting with the play, this is a story, and a story which is written in a form that it can be acted on the stage, but it should be in written form. Where drama is a kind of story which is designed to be acted on the stage. That it is not necessary to be in written form, but once it is put in written form, is where now changes its title from drama to a play. Therefore, we go directly to content of Module 4. Content of Module 4, which has to do with the praise from Africa. Module 4 consists of 4 lectures, whereby lecture 1 has to do with the I Will Marry When I Want. I Will Marry When I Want. This is a story whose setting is in Kenya, authored by Ngugi wa Thiong'o. It is a very interesting story, a story which tries to reflect the society, the Kenyan society immediate after independence. The challenges which the society of Kenya faced from their own government. This reflected in this module. We are told that through this story that it reaches a time when the government of Kenya decided to shut this play down. That due to its reflection which made toward that particular government. And coming to lecture 2, lecture 2 has to do with the reading songs of Lawino and the Oko. This is a story which is in a poem form. This is a narrative poem. It is a song which tries to narrate a certain story about Lawino and the Oko. In this narrative poem, we come across a certain character called the Clementine. When reading this story, you see a character called the Clementine. Apart from that is lecture 3, which has to do with the analysis of Song of Lawino. And through this lecture, we make analysis. We analyze this narrative to see what exactly inside this story. And the last lecture, which is lecture 4 in Module 4, is all about She No Longer Weeps. She No Longer Weeps. This also is a story, very interesting story, which tries to portray the realities of African society. And therefore, through this story, She No Longer Weeps, we reflect, we get to know, we get to see, we get to be introduced to the realities of African society. Then we shift to I Will Marry When I Want, introduction. That we start our story by receiving the introduction of it. That I Will Marry When I Want, as I have said, is one of the most famed Kenyan play written by Ngugi wa Thiong'o. It is the most respected play, most respected story, a story which is respected due to its impact, due to its reflection, which made toward the Kenyan regime by that time, immediate after independence. That I Will Marry When I Want is a story which was set in post-independence in Kenya. This play is a searing look at the legacies of colonialism and the myriad of difficulties Kenya faced in aftermath of the successful overthrow of British colonial rule. Therefore, you can see through this story the picture, the little picture of what happened in Kenya by that time, especially after the independence, after overthrowing the colonial rule by that time. That it is renewed for its Marxist critique as well. Its interweaving of lyrical and metaphysical element. It is a kind of a story which tries to reveal Marxist critics. Then the play was written first in Kikuyu, in Ina's language, entitled Ngaika Ndenda. Ngaika Ndenda is a title given by Ngugi in indigenous or in his tribal language, meaning that I will marry when I want. So you can see how this story is very, very interesting. Then we can try to see Kenyan government response toward this particular book. That the play was very successful and ran for a good amount of time before the Kenyan authorities shut it down. As I have said before, that the response of the Kenyan government by the time toward this play was not a good one. It was negative one. You know, the government responded in a negative way toward this play, simply because the play tried to show the government weaknesses and the difficulties of Kenyans from their own government. Instead of good expectations, they had expected from the overthrowing of colonial regime. Therefore, after the government saw the message which was revealed by this story, the government decided to shut down this particular story. Simply because it was a shame. It was a shame toward the government. Many believes it led to Ngugi's imprisonment, in which he was held in the Kamiri maximum security prison in Nairobi from December 1977 to December 1979. 1 year, almost 1 year. That people do believe that the imprisonment of Ngugi wa Thiong'o was due to this play, simply because the government, as you have seen, responded negatively toward this story. Therefore, he compromised by by giving out another play which he titled "Devil on the Cross." That is the play which he wrote when he was in prison. Imprisoned by the government of Kenya. Then he eventually left the country for fear of his safety. After being in prison once, he decided to flee from his own country, that is Ngugi wa Thiong'o, and did not return for several decades. You know, he went far away from Kenya, afraid to be in prison again. Then from there, we can see summaries of this story. We can see this story and summary. Then the play is set in post-colonial Kenya, as I have said before. That through this story, we come across a main character called Kigunda, and his wife Wangeci. And this is a family which practice peasant. It is a two poor peasant. Then we can see in the story, they are seen waiting for a visitor from a wealthier man called Kioi and his wife Jezebel. And if you go through this story, these names Kioi and Jezebel, these are symbols. They are used to represent. They are used to represent wealthier families and wealthy families. Where we see in most African countries, wealthy families tend to use these names apart from the indigenous names from Africa. Then these names are used as a symbol, and they symbolize wealth. Then while they are waiting, they are waiting for their visitors. They are seen arguing with their daughter Gathon, and their daughter Gathon, who they believe to be lazy and disrespectful on account of being influenced by modernity. And Gathon, is a modern girl. Therefore, their parents decided to give her a piece of advice. Instead of receiving that piece of advice, Gathon responded negatively. That's why it reaches time that it becomes an argument instead of agreement. Then two of their friends, that is Gikamba and his wife Njoki, stopped by before the visit of Kioi and Jezebel. This another two characters we come across through this story. Then the story goes on where we see Gikamba is very radical and speaks of how oppressed the Kenyan people are by the Kenyan authorities, and the foreigners with whom they are collaborated, as well as the Western religion that infiltrate their reign. That you can see there is the issue of land alienation here, and that Gikamba tries to introduce to us on how Kenya were snatched their reign and their home reign, and that the land was taken by Westerners who were in collaboration with the Kenyan rulers, entrusted power from their fellow Africans, their fellow Kenyans. This one is seen in the story. Then Gikamba and Njoki lives as Kioi and his wife arrives. This also is a symbol. It's a symbol which try to symbolize the issue of classes. That immediate after Kioi and his wife arrived, that Gikamba and Njoki decided to leave. Why? There you can ask such kind of question. Why are they leaving? Why are they joining them and continue with their talking? There you can see such kind of symbolism. Then Wangeci and Kigunda secretly wonder if they are there because Gathon is romantically involved with Kioi and Jezebel's son, that is Johnny. And there we come across, or we are introduced to another character called Johnny. Johnny, in the story, is given a nickname, is given a name Johnny Muhuni. And there, even this name is a symbol and trying to demonstrate his behavior in a character. Then we see there Wangeci and Kigunda secretly wonder if they are there because of Gathon, and not only because of Gathon, but because of Gathon's relationship or relationship with their son, that is Muhuni, Yoni Muhuni. Kioi and Jezebel, as well as two other upward mobile Africans, Dungile. Dungile and his wife Helen sit down and begin to inform Kigunda and Wangeci that they need to have a lawful Christian marriage and not the way they are. And how are they going to do so? They need to join their church first. Their church, and that is Ndungile's church, Ndungile's and Helen's church. After joining their church, that they will break their marriage and become a Christian marriage. Then they are both hesitant, and Kigunda practically shout them out of his heart. He chased them away due to the information and due to the that message of break their marriage. It annoyed him to the extent that he decided to chase them away. After they arrive, Kigunda and Wangeci think about what the rich man and his wife said. There, the rich man, as we did see, that is Kioi, and his wife is Wangeci. Instead of paying attention on what Ndungile said about their marriage, they chased them away and they continue thinking about the idea brought by Kioi and his wife. Eventually, Wangeci comes to believe that they want the marriage because then it would be fine for Gathon and Johnny to marry. That was Kigunda's family ideas. I think which Kioi and his wife hadn't. Then Kigunda agrees, and they plan to go to Kioi's house to tell them they agree with the plan. There you can see Kioi's idea and Kigunda's idea are quite contrary, different ideas. Kioi think the other way, and Kigunda think the other way. Then they come to discuss that Kigunda and his wife advise one another to go at Kioi's house to tell them about the news, about the relationship between their daughter and the son, that is Bioni Muhuni. The relationship between Kigunda's daughter and Kioi's son. Then, before they go, Ikamba and Njoki return and warn them about throwing the yarot, in which those people disagree. It's like they were praying a lottery. That's what Ikamba and Njoki return to warn Kigunda and his wife about. That Ikamba says, Kioi ought to have come with a wage in place, not with an invitation to join the Christianity church. He says his friendly marriage invalid because it was done in the Kenyan way, that is indigenous way, traditional way. That their marriage is a traditional marriage. Therefore, Ikamba continued to influence Kigunda to change his marriage, and to be a Christianity marriage. And Ikamba also urges them to remember how Christians were complicity with the enemies of the Kenya. the Kenyan people during the independence struggle. We are introduced on how Kenyan people fought for their independence, but still they are not free, though they are under their own regime, regime which is under Kenyan people. Still they are not free. That's why Ikamba tried to remind his fellow friend, that is Kigunda, that the situation is not good. Then Kigunda and Lwangesi ignores these entreaties and decide to go to Kioi's house. Kigunda, instead of receiving the advice from Ikamba, he decided to ignore. He decided to ignore it and continue with his plan to go and see Kioi. And they are seen arriving. And treated rudely by Jezebel. Once they reach there at Kioi's home, Kioi's house, they are treated rudely. You can see by going through this story, you see how they were treated, not being allowed to sit with them. But when they announced their desire to have a Christian wedding, the rich couple is a priest. You can see, but when they introduced the issue of changing their marriage status, Kioi's wife is become interested with the issue. Become interested with the issue. Then they announced, we did see, they announced the issue of wedding and influenced the interest of Jezebel, Kioi's wife. That Kigunda and Lwangesi says they are happy to do this, but have no money. They wanted to bless their marriage. They want to change their marriage into Christian marriage, but they have no money. Here we are portrayed, or this event or this statement reveals to us the issue of poverty. The issue of poverty, that they have no money. That's why they cannot bless their marriage. And we wonder if they can borrow a bit to pay for the ceremony and the reception. Then you see, instead of solving the problem, they think to add more problem. They have no money, still they think to borrow again money, and that money they can use it to celebrate in their ceremony, wedding ceremony and reception. You can see how poverty is portrayed in Kenyan society, in Kenyan people. But not only in Kenya, this one applies even to other countries of Africa. Like Tanzania, like Burundi, this we call them third world countries, poor countries. Then Kioi and Jezebel laugh and say Kigunda is worth because he gets paid more than others and has a title deed. To 1.5 acres. Therefore, he is rich. He is rich simply because he is paid more money if compares to others and to other workers of Kioi. Kigunda is working at Kioi's factory. Then Kioi finally says he will ensure a loan at a bank for Kigunda using the title deed as collateral. That a title deed, is going to ensure a loan from the bank using a title deed as collateral. This is some sort of stealing. Kioi knew that once he ensured that loan from the bank, it reached a time when Kigunda will fail to pay back that amount. Then Kioi will will come and take that title deed after repaying the loan instead of Kioi. Then he will be bought the land of a half 1.5 acre. 1.5 acre, just simple as that. Then Kigunda and Wangeci are happy. You can see that Kigunda and Wangeci are happy and buy a lot of things for their house and for the wedding. There, in the story there, they managed to take that money, take that loan from the bank. Then you can see they are seen happy. They are seen happy using that money they get from the bank, and by buying a lot of things, and by buying a lot of house things and things which are going to be used at the wedding. They imagine the ceremony in their heads, but it all comes a clash down when Gathoni returns and declares that she is pregnant, but Johnny has jilted her, that Johnny has chased her away. Then there you can see Gathoni is pregnant. Gathoni is pregnant, and that pregnancy is Johnny's pregnancy. Johnny's pregnancy. Then they go to Kioi, assuming that he will want the children to marry. He will want the children to marry. But he viciously carried Gathon a war. He viciously calls Gathon a war, and he says Johnny is guilty of nothing. That his son is not guilty. Is not guilty. That Johnny is guilty of nothing. Is not guilty. Kigunda is enraged and pulls out sword. He wears under his clothes. He threatened Kioi, who cowers in fear. But a home guard and Jezebel enters the house with Jezebel branding a gun, pointing a gun at Kigunda. She orders them to leave, and Kigunda and Wangeci turn to go. Kigunda turns back for his sword and is seen shot by Jezebel. He was just going back to take his sword, but Jezebel thought that Kigunda wants a fight. That's why he is coming back. Then she decided to shoot him. There you can see Kigunda is being shot by Jezebel. Then there is no wedding anymore. You can see there is no wedding anymore. The wedding, they expected the wedding between Gathon and Johnny Muhuni. Then the wedding dies the natural death. After this incident, Wangeci wails to Kigamba and Njoki about her family troubles. They went home and decided to share what happened at Kioi's with their neighbor, that is Kigamba and Njoki. Then Gathon has left to become a barman. You know, Gathon after become pregnant, he decided to run away from home, thinking that she is going to hide. The shame she caused for her family. And Kigunda recovered from being shot. We did say a few minutes ago that Jezebel shot Kigunda. After a few days, Kigunda got recovered and is seen drunkard and depressed. This here we get that theme called the disillusionment. Disillusionment is seen through Kigunda, who has lost hope, who has lost direction. Instead he decided to take alcohol, thinking that going to forget what happened. And we know most of African society have this thought that once you face the problem, instead of solving those problems, you decide to take alcohol. Then it seemed that Kioi used his power at the bank to call in the loan, which took away their title to their rent, and then he bought it himself, so as foreign company could be a factory or could be built on that particular land. Kigunda comes back from the bar and is seen angry, fighting with his wife, and that is Wangeci. There, Kigunda decided to shift his anger, from Kioi to his wife, and this is normal. This is normal in African families, that where you find a husband caused the problem, caused the trouble somewhere, and shift those anger to his family, something which is not. Then Kikamba says they must not fight. Kikamba decided to advise that they must not fight among themselves. Rather, but instead rise up against the oppression, or the oppressors, those who cause them trouble. Hence, they fight. Then Kigunda is seen in the story being depressed, to the extent that his family is no longer stable. Then from there we can shift to characterization, where we are going to see some of the characters who are seen in this particular story. I will marry when I want. First of all, I would like to give you a little bit the meaning of characterization. That characterization is a process. Characterization is a process through which the author creates an imaginary person, whom he is going to use, as a presenter of his or her ideas. Therefore, you can see in this story, Kigunda is not a real person. Kigunda is not a real person. Instead, Kigunda is an imaginary person. Used by Ngugi wa Thiong'o to present his ideas. Therefore, Kigunda in this story is the main character, is being portrayed as the husband of Wangeci and Gathoni's father. Then we have another character, that is Kioi. Kioi is also a representative, or a carrier of Ngugi's ideas, Ngugi's critics, Ngugi's message to his society, and Africa in general. There, Kioi is a wealth, greedy, and devious Kenyan, who has embraced the religion and the value of the white man. Embraced the religion and the value of well. Another character is Gathon. Gathon is being portrayed as the beautiful but superficial daughter of Kigunda and Wangeci. Gathon falls in love with John. We did see earlier. Falls in love with the John Muhoni, and she end up pregnant and jilted by John Muhoni. She eventually leaves her family to become a barmaid. After become pregnant, she decided to run away from her family and become a barmaid. Helen, the wife of Ndungile, Helen, that is another character. She is the wife of Ndungile. Helen is also Christian, and smugly ignorant of the class struggle since she and her husband now have money. Her husband and her have money. John Mhoni. John Mhoni is another character portrayed in this story by Ngugi wa Thiong'o. The son of Kioi, the son of Kioi and Jezebel, the son from a rich family, wealthy family. John romances or loves Gatham, but ultimately abandoned and criticized her when he learns that she is pregnant. Then another character is Jezebel. That is Kioi's wife, the snob wife of Kioi, and a mother to John. Jezebel is an immoral woman because of her association with the foreigners and her press with the rapacious colonial elite. Then we have another character, that is Ndungile. Ndungile, husband to Helen. Ndungile is a new rich Kenyan who is now friend with the Kioi on account of his social status. You can see previous area. Ndungile was a normal person, but now simply because he has money, he become friends with the Kioi. Then he is immoral, bankrupt like his parent. Then we have another character that is Gikamba. Gikamba is a poor laborer and the husband of Njoki. Gikamba is articulate and passionate and intelligent, but Kigunda failed to realize that. That's why he failed to receive even the piece of advice given by him. Then you can see how Gikamba intelligent is. Then from there we can see, we can try to work on the issue of class struggle in Kenya. That this is the main theme of this play, and this is the main theme of this play, whereby Ngugi wa Thiong'o tries to show the classes in Kenyan society where there are about three classes. There is rich class, there is middle class, and poor class. People like Gikamba, people like Kigunda. These are poor class, lower class. While people like Kioi, they are the upper class, rich class. As used by Ngugi to represent those wealthy people in Kenya. The later work of using Marxist ideology, Ngugi reveals the tension in post-colonial Kenya in regards to the workers' peasant population and the elite Kenyans. That the later works with the Europeans to bring back an uncomfortable association of the country's colonial past. And there you can see Ngugi tries to use that class struggle to show how people are not free even after think that they have got their independence. Then they are agreed, ignorant and concerned with the masses the masses of people. They embrace Western religion and the philosophy and they move far from their origins. They abandon their origin, their African culture, and behave like Europeans. You can see if you go through this story, if you read this story, you will see all that. That the working class cannot survive for very much longer, and by the end of the next preparation to mount another revolution, this time for economic parity, not independence. Though they are free, or they got freedom from the colonialist, still they are not free economically. That's why the author tries to advise and tries to tell them to fight in order to be free economically. Then Ngugi characters, especially Kikamba, after convincing accounts of why this struggle is necessary and pure, tries to show or to encourage Kenyan people on what is to be done. Then, beside the theme of class struggle, there is another theme, that is modernity versus tradition. Modernity versus tradition. That class struggle, one of modernity versus traditional, is immediately apparent in the story. This is seen in the relationship between Wangeci, Kigunda, and their daughter Gathoni. Gathoni is portrayed as a modern woman, a modern girl, one who wants to buy things and choose when she wants to marry. One who wants to buy things, especially expensive things, and choose when she wants to marry. There, Gathoni is a symbol, and Gathoni used as a symbol. They cannot conceive of making choices in this respect, and perhaps more minor but equally important are frustrated with hierarchy of manner and work ethic. They play slightly more sympathy to the parent, and by extension tradition by not giving Gathoni many words or thoughts of her own outside the petulant one. Then you can see also the issue of gender, the issue of gender or gender issues is portrayed in this particular book, I Will Marry When I Want. That I Will Marry When I Want has rather mixed agenda on gender. Gikamba pays services to the idea to the gender equality must be an important component of their revolution, and they must appreciate women's contributions in the society. But do they do so? That is a question you can ask yourself. Then the question can be answered by going through this particular story, I Will Marry When I Want. On the other hand, the play informs a traditional gender hierarchy. That the female characters are mostly silent when they do talk. They are mostly silent when they are invited to talk. It is either about frivolously or things, or it reveals their ignorance about the importances of their fight. Then Gathoni, a character who might argue a new, modern and equal woman, is given a short shrift. And the family and the home, where men and women's role are largely classified in the focus. Another thing portrayed in this play, I Will Marry When I Want, is about culture. That traditional Kenyan culture is viewed in contrast to Western culture. The latter is seen as an alien and found wanting. It would be reductive to call the novel about cultural clash, but the term is nevertheless useful. Kigunda and his ilk decline the influx of Western ideas, particularly regarding religious marriage, the value of work and land, and the other things. Kioi and the other Kenyan elites prefer to distance themselves from their own culture and embrace those of Western, mostly because it allows them to get ahead of their fellow Kenyans or their fellow Africans. The contrast between the two marriage ceremonies offer the most instructive look at how Ngugi depicts Kenyan culture as more authentic and meaningful, and Western culture as solace at its worst and alien at its best. Then another issue is about the political struggle. That the class struggle takes place in the context of an earlier political struggle in which Kenya fought revolution of independence against the British colonial government. That Ngugi calls explicit attention to this earlier struggle, valorizing the achievements of the Mau Mau, celebrating their ethos and philosophy, and suggesting that his character adapted the same principle of principal unit to wage this battle against the Kenyan elite and their foreign friends who have taken over their economy and opened the door to Western value system and philosophies. That another issue is marriage and family. Marriage and family are given primary in the play, as the title suggests. Ngugi has more traditional view of marriage than other late 20th century's writers. The focus is on the home and on a solid marriage rooted in companionship and the ability to care for another or others. He also seems ambivalent about having a too emotional laissez-faire act to be about the institution as seen in Gathon's viewpoint. The play begins and ends in home with the traditional Kenyan view of family and the marriage taken prominence. Then another issue portrayed in this story is about religion. The theme of religion is couched in other themes such as class struggle. That this is because religion is a tool of the oppressor and is a flashpoint for debates about traditional versus outsiders, culture, and values. The play, let's see, I will remember when I want, is not explicitly anti-religion, but Gikamba is particularly lays out how the Kenyan churches often argued against independence and capitulated to Western influences. He declares all of the Western churches opening throughout their village. He also spent a great deal of time explaining how religion and opiates is the alcohol of the soul because it encourages people to think not about their earthly struggles, but about their future in heaven. This prerodes criticism and uprising and allows people like Kioi to flourish and fatten while the poor do their best to ignore their woes or conclude that God given. Then we can see some analysis of Song of Lawino by after finishing the summary of this prayer I will marry when I want, and this one is lecture 2 and module 4, which has to do with the analysis of Song of Lawino and the Okol in the nutshell. We are going to see analysis in a nutshell. First of all, I would like to introduce to you Song of Lawino. That is Song of Lawino and the Okol is an epic poem written by a Ugandan poet Okot P. Bitek, first published in 1966. In Europe. Then after translated into other languages including English. Song of Lawino has become one of the most widely read literary works originating from sub-Saharan Africa that addresses the issue of facing liberated Africa. The poem poses a question: what kind of liberation should Africa take on? That is a question obtained from this particular poem, a narrative poem. The main focus of this story, or the story Song of Lawino and the Okol, is should it honor its tradition, or should it adapt the European values that were already set in place during colonialism? That is another question. Okot P. Bitek addresses this question by telling the story of Lawino, a woman whose husband Okol throw her out of their home and bring home a more Europeanized woman as a wife. And the story is told as a dialogue between Lawino and the Okol. The poem itself is separated in different sections or chapters. Each one detailing the social problem facing Lawino and the Okol in their marriage, their differences and value system. Then the difference between Lawino and the Okol are presented, whereby the first chapter set up the differences between Lawino and the Okol. That Okol despises black people and the traditional ways and has adopted the European values and ignore the Africans traditions. This is because he worked in the government and he wants to modernize Africa. He wants to modernize Africa in those values, European values, something which is impossible. It cannot be done. Lawino disagree and implore her husband to stop hunting to stop hurting his own people by forcing them to change to adapt new culture from West. Then we can see Okol's new wife. The second chapter addresses the issue of Okol's new wife. That Okol's new wife, unlikely Lawino, is thoroughly Europeanized. Here, we note that the attack starts as a fair restraint for the factual account of Lawino's husband preference for a modern girl. Then, to enable Lawino to advance her argument forcefully, Okot gives her the gift of wit and employs Okol poetic forms to produce a budget work of satire. She first displays her wit forcefully at the beginning of the chapter 2, where Lawino makes a mockery of modern notion of beauty, including the use of makeup and cosmetics, by comparing her rival Clementine, the girl of modern ways, to what in traditional Akal society must be regarded as the ugliest and most wicked of all creatures, and that is according to Lawino. Then there is another issue about African beauty. The fourth chapter details when Lawino was young woman, and how Okol once wooed and won her. This chapter tries to show the first meet, especially when they were young, Lawino and Okol. While she remembers Okol wooing of her and the beauty of her home, Lawino voices takes on a note of nostalgia. Then the message conveys by Lawino in this section is that African women are invited to run away from artificial and European ways of cooking for their beauty. They must remain natural. They could not abandon their tradition. The poem becomes an argument honoring the traditional African value. And to finalize our presentation for today is about Okoti's concern. That Okoti has made the foundation. Okoti has made the foundation on which he wishes to build the African nations, abundantly and clearly wrote out his poem, Song Okol. He wants to challenge all concerned with national building to make their own activities in light of his ideas. If they do not accept the challenges, then like Nyerere and Senghor, who are looking for an African mold for nation building, with the utterly defeated by the continuing cultural influence of European on Africa. Therefore, this is the Okoti's concern in his story, which is a narrative poem. It is a song. It is a poem. Still, it tries to narrate a certain story about African society and their weaknesses, and also the challenges they faced aftermath of the independence, especially Kenyan society. Therefore, for today we are ending there. I hope you enjoyed my presentation. Thank you for your attention.